Hey, good morning, everybody. This is AKA Heather Joy. You've just boarded the lifeboat. Good to see you guys this morning. Before I get started, I first of all want to run through the rules we have. I got that intro video ready too. I want to do this much longer. Anyway, the first rule that we have is please refrain from discussing politics in the comment section and in the live chat. The second one, oh yes, this isn't a religious channel. It's fine to offer to pray for someone or saying things like I could not have found sobriety without my faith. Those things are fine, but please no overbearing religious tones at all. Okay. The third one, please don't curse while you are in the chat or the comment section. Tommy always says if you can't control your mouth, then you can't control your life. And the last one, we have the last one. Yes, trolls. Please, there's no room on this boat for mean people at all. I mean, we have all the room in the world for people that are looking for sobriety and want to overcome their addiction. We got all the room we could ever need for that. But if you're going to be mean, no. Anyway, I would also, if you haven't already, I'd just like to ask you to please share these videos, and please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I would really, 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 really appreciate it. That really does make a difference, though. It signals to the algorithm that we are doing something that people are engaging with, and hopefully, they'll promote it. Send it out to more people. So, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I just wanted to finish. I didn't have time yesterday to finish getting through everything yesterday. That I wanted to tell you guys that I've been I've been learning, I've been reading about complex PTSD. But I just realized, first of all, I want to see who we have here. Oh, we've got Dominic again, full of hope. Good morning. Well, it's good. It's morning here. Full of hope. Anyway, Trish, Joe, did you know Blake? Let's see, Charlie, Trish, Ultra Magazine is here. All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad you guys are all here. Oh, chaos going on inside the house, so I had to come out here. I got house guests sleeping all over the place, and I didn't want to disturb everybody. So you're gonna have to put up with me out here, and cars driving by. But Okay, I'm sorry guys. I hope I got that resolved. Can you guys see and hear me now? I really hope. I'm so sorry about all of that. And I see we've got some more people have come in. We've got Random Toaster and uh, God is Divine. I like that name. JT's here too. Awesome. Dennis N. Annette. Hi. Good morning, you guys. Cool. I'm sorry about that. I hope that is resolved now. Anyway, let's see. Where was I? Find. Aha, there we go. Okay, I just want to read you something. Because I think there's some of you that are going to relate to this. You know, people that suffer from complex PTSD, it really is. It's a heavy burden, and I think this is fitting. This is another one of the lady that has written this book that I am currently reading. These are files from some of her patients that she has treated. Fred has been living with anxiety for much of his life. Now, as an adult, he has 2 children who depend on him and a job that he can't afford to lose. After his chest pain started last year, he told his doctor about his ongoing panic attacks and insomnia. He was prescribed he was prescribed anti-anxiety medications, which kept him afloat but left him feeling flat and depressed. Thankfully, his doctor also suggested that he seek psychotherapy. As we explored his past, he spoke of growing up in a chaotic and unpredictable childhood home. And I'm sure there are a lot of you who understand what that's like. Anyway, he said that after his parents' divorce, his mother was never the same. Slowly, we unpacked the heavy burden of insecurity that Fred has been carrying all this time. It really is. It can be a very heavy burden. All of these childhood memories, things that are traumatic, it's not fun. And it really can weigh on you and it can have consequences on your health. Um, and it really is. Complex PTSD is a set of symptoms. It comes from pain and stress. That you are exposed to at a really early age. Um, and when you're exposed to those things, it has a profound effect. On the way that you're going to see yourself, your perspective, the way that you see the world, and to be able to heal from trauma that has happened when you were so young. You have to turn towards it. It doesn't make it's almost counterintuitive, but turning to something that is painful to get relief finally from the anxiety and everything. But let me read you this list of different types of experiences that can lead to complex PTSD. Um, Childhood relationships with parents or caregivers that are frightening, unpredictable, or overwhelming. I definitely understand that one. Another situation that can contribute would be something. Let's see, ongoing or repeated experiences of neglect or physical, verbal, or sexual abuse. And I said the word. Oops. Anyway, and experiences of neglect. It might not be physical neglect. It can very well be emotional neglect. Where your parents just don't have they don't have their own issues dealt with, and they aren't able to provide what you need emotionally, and that can be neglectful, and and it's a type of abuse. Let's see, another situation would be growing up where you're exposed to domestic violence. That's another one that's hard to see. You feel so powerless when you see things like that going on. As a child, you want to stop it, but you are powerless. You don't know what to do. Not a good feeling. Let's see. Another one would be where you would, let's see, experiencing some type of abuse at very vulnerable times of your development. Like really, really, early childhood. Especially the time before you even can talk. A lot of damage can be done even at that stage. Even in utero, they have found out um, that babies, while they are still inside their mothers, can be exposed, can feel the stress that the mom is going under, exposed to the stress hormones that flow through her body. And the child can hear and sense things, even though a baby is inside. They're exposed. It definitely can have a negative effect, even at that early stage. You're gonna have to wait, honey. You'll have to wait just a minute, okay? Let's see. Okay, another situation. Oh, another time where you are really vulnerable, and it is a bad time for any type of abuse, is in adolescence as well. That's a really critical time as well. And that was really when I got hit with a lot of stuff growing up, was during that period. And yeah, it gives you a shaky start. Let's see. If there are social stresses that you're under a lot, like bullying, or if there's a disability, or maybe you're exposed to a really traumatic event. Um, let's see. Something that if you're exposed to something like in your little community, or the caregiver that is supposed to protect and care for you. If there's some event there, where that gets your caregiver isn't taking your care is interrupted, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That could be another situation. And then it also lists here being discriminated against or feeling disempowered. Let's see, without a caregiver who helps advocate for you or takes responsibility for your needs. All of these can be situations that can, if you've experienced those. And as I was talking about yesterday, this is something that it's chronic exposure. Over it affects you over time, because it's something that you see, and you experience almost daily. And yeah, it can be really painful. And trying to unpack all of that, at first, it's a lot to take on. It can be really painful. But you have to unpack all of that painful stuff. You need to look at it. You need to deal with it, process it. You have you people, when you have to face a lot of that, it becomes overwhelming. A lot of times, very painful memories will come flooding back, and it feels very overwhelming. And what you've got, that's why talk therapy can be so beneficial, because you can be able to talk it out. But when you're flooded with emotions, it's your limbic system, your the area of your brain that controls your emotions, or your emotion center, I should say, to be more accurate. But that part of your brain's really lit up, and it's really going, and you want to move the thoughts from being concentrated in that area of your brain. You want to move them up here, to your prefrontal cortex up here, because this part of your brain, this is your adult you. This is your logic. In you can be rational, but you've got to move all those thoughts up here, talk them out. When you can talk them out, you're thinking them through, because you're putting all of those feelings and those memories into words, that you can share, and you can get this out. And it's very beneficial to be able to talk these things out. um, because that the act of talking and also the act of journaling, move all of those memories and those feelings into words. And you can start to organize, you can start to look at things rationally. I hope that I talk a lot about that, but that it's so important because if you don't move everything from that emotional center of your brain to somewhere where you can deal with it as an adult, then you're not going to be able to work through it. But that's what it's going to take. um you know and I'm just reading here some of the tips that it gives when you're trying to work through some of these things. And it said, um, it's a good idea to remember that unpacking a lot of your painful memories and working through them is an act of self care. If you can do that, you're finally going to be able to eventually, have dealt with, looked at all of the painful memories and dealt with them. And a therapist can help you to look at them in ways where they become not painful anymore. They just become part of your story. That's eventually but that's what you're working towards. Um, anyway, it says to you kind of imagine you're moving into a more spacious home, where you're unpacking painful memories of the past and making room for more positive emotions. And in the process of unpacking, you want to pace yourself so you are not overwhelmed, because that can, like I was just saying, you can just be completely flooded with memories, and it can be very overwhelming, and you want to pace yourself and just deal with one thing at a time instead of trying to take it all on at once, because it's overwhelming. But by allowing each memory to find its right place, that's so helpful. Every bad memory that you have deserves to be looked at and acknowledged. And if you can write about that, you can understand it better, and you can understand, if you can look at the whole situation too, and look at how you reacted to it, and how that has changed your behavior over time too. That when you can start to pick those things out, those are huge epiphanies. And I found this guys, this was very interesting as well, about CPTSD. Um, a lot of times it isn't diagnosed properly. I have not ever had this diagnosis until maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago now. And the whole time I've had so many different diagnoses, guys. It's kind of a joke at this point. But I thought this was interesting that a lot of times, CPTSD is not diagnosed properly, and there's a couple reasons for it. First of all, um, there is the DSM-5. It's a manual that has all the different, what is it's the diagnostic, here it is, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual on Mental Disorders. It's not listed in that. It's not included in that DSM-5. And it says here, let's see, the diagnosis listed for PTSD closely matches the symptoms and the effects of CPTSD, because 90% of the symptoms are the same. So that's one reason, that 90% of what the DSM-5 has listed for PTSD, yeah, 90% of the symptoms are the same. That's then there's also co-occurring diagnoses that can mask CPTSD. So it's really important, that to have an accurate diagnosis. Um, but sometimes it's difficult, because you can simultaneously have other other disorders at the same time. And this is here, for example, children who were neglected or abused are at a higher risk for anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, and learning disabilities. And children with these disorders are also at greater risk for abuse. Let's see. Another reason is that CPTSD symptoms can look like other disorders. They can mimic the symptoms of things like it says here, for example, a child or a teen who's been abused or neglected might appear impulsive, anxious, angry, or depressed, but throughout a family history, it let's see. But if a thorough family history is not understood, it can lead to inaccurate diagnosis of bipolar. I've been given that one before. So you can have an inaccurate a bipolar disorder, anxiety disorder, or major depressive disorder. But see that they can, all of these other things can look like it too. So it you really do have to understand, for clinicians, they need to understand your whole history. Look how important, you know, in diagnosing this type of PTSD, you have to know the history. Yeah, that's really important. But it says here's some of the common mistaken co-occurring diagnoses that can happen. Borderline personality, uh, common. Let's see, it's commonly mistaken, or it co-occurs with CPTSD. Bipolar disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, sensory processing disorder, learning disabilities, anxiety disorders, major depressive disorder or dysphoria, also somatization disorders, and that's where you're experiencing psychological disorders as physical symptoms. Chronic pain is a good example right there. And the last one, and we all know this one, substance abuse or dependence. Yeah, but it's a really an essential part of healing from all of this. In in a lot of cases involves working with somebody. Whether it's like a psychotherapist, psychiatrist, a medical doctor. But it is important, to have an accurate diagnosis, because a proper if you have that proper diagnosis, you might be medicated differently. You might be given a different type of therapy. So it's really important. It's and there's a lot of work you can do on your own, but I think it is important, to understand clearly what how, it's important to understand what your diagnosis might be if you have one, so that it's easier to find the therapy that's going to work for you if you understand that. Um anyway, there are these 8 contributing factors, um that they have identified that contribute to developing CPTSD, and I just wanted to share these with you guys. I found this really interesting. But it says here, will two people with similar histories have different outcomes? Yeah. Why is it that multiple children can grow up in the same household, but only one feels traumatized? And that was, for a long time, that was how it was in my family. I was the only one that felt it. I mean, I can see it now. In some of them, it's coming out, and she's dealing with it, and she's dealing with it well. So it's a good thing. But anyway, it's such a multifaceted thing. But okay, one of the contributing factors that contribute would be the intensity, duration, and timing of whatever it is that is traumatizing. And the longer it goes on, of course, the greater the trauma is going to be. Um, Genetics is another one. And this is research indicates that anxiety disorders, including PTSD, they tend to run in families. And yeah, I've seen that firsthand. Um, anyway, it says it's not a direct cause of PTSD, the genetics, but having a parent with it, you have a greater risk of developing that. Um, So there's kind of like a biological predisposition that kids can have, and I've seen that a lot in my family, and when I was a psych nurse, yeah, I've seen a lot of that. Environment is another factor. I mean, that can contribute a great deal. Uh, let's see. It talks about mothers and the attachment that they get to their children and how that really can play a role. And I used to I remember doing a research paper on infant attachment like ages ago when I first was at where was I, Utah State University. This is a long time ago, but it was really interesting. And it talks about how when babies are born, the baby a baby is learning how to let its mother and its father know when it's hungry, when it needs its diaper changed, just if it's in pain, if it's tired, or you know, but it's an interaction, and if the parents are responsive and the child realizes that it's going to be taken care of and that it can count on its parents, that safe environment provides a safe, secure attachment to the parents, and that attachment is really, really crucial for later on in life. It's a basis. If you have a good attachment, you're going to see the world as a safe place and see people as safe and caring, and you're a lot more whole in that case. And when you don't receive, when you're if you don't get that secure attachment as a child, it really can have a massive effect on you. I mean, so that's could be part of your environment, and that environment is huge in you know in people that develop CPTSD. Oh, this is interesting. I was talking earlier about in utero effects, and here it is right here. In utero influence. Infants born to mothers who were pregnant during a traumatic event that could have resulted in a diagnosis of PTSD. And it says here, such as the 9/11 attacks. It says that they had lower birth weights, decreased levels of decreased levels of cortisols, the chemical that responds to stress. And it says, although this does not necessarily result in childhood abuse or neglect, such infants are harder to soothe, they're more prone to colic, and they all have an increased risk for PTSD. And I thought that was interesting. Another one that can contribute would be family dynamics. You know, and I'm sure you have noticed, growing as you grew up, your parents had, hopefully you had some kind of a relationship with your parents, but your parents have different relationships with each child's different. There's going to be a different type of relationship, and I've noticed that with all of our children. Um, and think, but things that can contribute to that, making that having a bond with your parents and having a good one would be like the comfort level. Um, but if a child, it says here, I wish they quit bringing this up. Anyway, the comfort level of a child's gender or the readiness to have a child. Um, I guess that okay, that makes sense though. If I saw that with my daughters, with my first husband. He the daughters were great, but he wanted a son to pass on their whole family money and property and all this. Yeah. Um, but it was a big deal to him. He still wanted that voice. I guess there would be some people, if they didn't get the child that they wanted, that could be a contributing factor right there. You might be treated differently, and I know Full of Hope knows what I'm talking about right there. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. If the pregnancy is not wanted, that can have an effect on the baby and the baby's personality and issues later. Right there. Um, but there's so much going into family dynamics, and every family is different. There's going to be different issues, for each family, but they all have an impact, on that bond that you have with your parents, with your siblings. Another issue that they bring up is modeling. It says here children that grow up in abusive homes tend to be exposed to multiple risk factors. Makes sense. Medical care might not be consistent. There might be insufficient modeling of hygiene practices. Children children watch what you do, and they learn. And they're very observant, and they're really observant when you don't want them to be. I've noticed. But yeah, I mean that's I kind of take those things for granted. But if you don't have parents that teach you, hygiene, and teach you how to clean things and how to keep house, and they're not modeling that, you're not going to learn that. Um, but it says there might be excessive modeling for high risk behaviors like smoking or substance abuse. Another one would be the presence of a learning disability or ADHD. It says there's a strong correlation between children with learning disabilities, including ADHD, and child abuse. And this connection appears to be bidirectional. Children who are abused are at a greater risk for development of learning disabilities because of the impact of the chronic stress and trauma on the developing brain. And it does. It can cause structural changes and chemical changes both. It has a very direct effect on your brain. Chronic stress. Yeah. Anyway, it says additionally, children who have a learning disability or ADHD are at a greater risk of being abused when parents misunderstand or are triggered by the child's cognitive differences. And I know that in families too, when there is a child that has tremendous challenges, whether they're cognitive, emotional, what have you, it has a big impact on the rest of the family too. And if parents aren't in a good state of mind where they can handle all of the extra stress that having children with those issues brings on, that can bring a lot of possible abuse, chronic stress to the other kids indirectly. And I know, again, full of hope, she knows what I'm talking about there. Let's see. And, this is here lack of resilience factors. And those are huge. Resilience factors are protective resources. It would be like parents. They're supposed to help alleviate the impact of childhood trauma. They're supposed to. But it says here, it suggests that research suggests that when parents are not supportive, even an attachment to an adult in your community who understands, nurtures, and protects you can lessen the impact of traumatic childhood events. So, if a parent isn't able to do that, but someone else can step in, that can help with kids. Um, you know, it says additional protective factors might include participating in activities outside of the home where you get to develop some, really good positive kind of peer connections. That can be really helpful. And it says where resilience factors are lacking, the impact of neglect or abuse can be amplified. Um, and it said by a feeling that those around you, that those around you have failed to protect you. That's a very real feeling. That's very real. Uh, and then I found this interesting. I was reading here. It talks about attachment theory, which I was speaking of just a little while ago. But it's attachment theory and CPTSD. Uh, let's see. It talks about an emotional bond between two people. And initially, when a baby's born, as I was describing before, there's the caregiver and the infant. Now, a secure attachment, is when that baby can depend on having, something safe and predictable, and that the parent is attuned to what they need. Because, as parents, you learn what the different cries mean. You can tell if they're just tired or if they're hungry, or you learn, you become attuned. But if that's something that is so necessary at the beginning, and if parents aren't in a good place and they aren't able to provide that, it's going to affect the baby, definitely. But you need, hopefully a child's cues are read and responded to, because that helps. It's huge. um let's see, this is okay. Yeah, when a child has that security, they feel secure enough that they can start to leave the presence of mom or dad and start to explore a little bit. But they need to have that secure base first, and then and you will see that children that have a secure attachment to their parents are the ones that feel good about getting up and checking out new toys, or new situations, or just looking around them. But um and it's cool to see when you can tell, just if I love to in airports. I love to watch parents and little ones, and just the interaction between them. It can be very telling. Let's see, but there having insecure attachments here are going to uh, contribute to CPTSD. um, you can have an insecure, ambivalent type of attachment, and that's where the child can't depend on the caregiver, its caregiver, for predictable things. And as a result, you develop anxiety and uncertainty, and that can definitely be carried out, into adulthood, and have a direct effect on you and your relationships with family, with spouse, with children, with people at work. It huge impact. You could also have what they call an insecure avoidant type of attachment, and that's described here as where this happens when a caregiver um, is repeatedly emotionally unavailable. That sends a definite message to the child, and that's what the child learns. Let's see, it says here that if you've got a distant or disengaged caregiver that repeatedly is emotionally unavailable and rejecting, the child adapts by avoiding closeness, disconnecting emotionally, or becoming overly self-reliant. um, and, if you find that you avoid closeness, and are disconnected emotionally, that's definite sign of having there was something messed up with the attachment that you had, way back when you were very young. I mean, it can come from there. And there's also something they call a disorganized type of attachment that happens, at this very beginning. um, let's see, this one is the result of a disorganized attachment style where the child grows up, let's see, with a primary caregiver whose behavior is overwhelming, chaotic, or abusive. That's a good description of what the house was that I grew up in, honestly. But the caregiver is a source of alarm and confusion. Yeah, and so there's the child has this biological drive to seek closeness from the very source of terror that they are trying to escape. That's definitely going to have an effect on your attachment. And like I said, those things can really set you up to end up with CPTSD. Um, let's see what time have I got. Okay, there are definite effects, that CPTSD has on both your mind and your physical body. your physical health. Um, and I just wanted to run through. There's a really good list here. Let's see. You can end up with a lot of cognitive distortions, and that would be just inaccurate beliefs that you might have about yourself or about other people or the way you see the world. That can definitely happen. Growing up in chaos. I mean, it really does. It can really affect your mind, and you can have some strange ideas about the world and things at first. It can be difficult. Lots of emotional distress. Frequent feelings of just being overwhelmed. I'm sure a lot of you understand that one. Um, but feelings of hopelessness, despair, loneliness, shame, unfairness, injustice. There can be a lot of disturbing somatic sensations. And so much somatization is just when you have a lot of emotional issues that come out physically, making you sick, giving you a headache, giving you a very upset stomach, or heart palpitations. Sometimes those things are emotional, and that's how it's coming out. Your body will end up just screaming, hey, pay attention, this is something you need to take care of. Honestly, that's what it is. um, Disorientation. This is inaccurate beliefs, emotions, and body sensations that contribute to a loss of distinction between the past and the present. Do you ever have memories that just envelop you so much and so deeply that it can really disorient you, and there will be moments where you feel like you're in the past again. I have experienced that. I know that one, and it is very disorienting. It can leave you hyper vigilant, and that's just where you're highly sensitive. You're very attuned to your environment and to everybody in it. You're watching their energies and how they say what they say. You're always just you're hyper focused. On making sure that you control everything in your environment. And I know that one well. Avoidance is another one. This is a learned pattern of behavior. If you shut people down, push people away, things like that. That's a definite sign. You know that you've got something going on from trauma from your past. Um, some of the other things that you guys might be, that you might feel with us here would be, let's see, feelings of irritability, um, self harm or self injury ideas. This could be, cutting or pulling out hair, eating disorders, binge eating, emotional eating, social anxiety, things like agoraphobia or paranoia, difficulty concentrating. That's definite one. Impulsivity or recklessness, it's excessive risk taking and promiscuity. I remember I've seen that in patients as a psych nurse. Um, let's see, outbursts of anger, addiction, or difficulty maintaining a job. Those are all symptoms of CPTSD. Other symptoms, other things you might see are interpersonal problems, an inability to connect with people and to maintain good relationships. Brain development can definitely be affected. Abuse and neglect, they do make measurable changes, honestly, in the brain structure and the chemical makeup. And there's, with unresolved CPTSD too, you're going to end up with health problems, of course. That, people definitely know what I'm talking about. I know there are a lot of you guys that struggle with chronic health issues that, when you have trauma that isn't resolved, it does impact you. It impacts your thinking, it impacts your health, it impacts your relationships, it impacts your life. And I don't know if talking about this is helpful. I'm hoping it is. I just really want you guys to understand that when if you have an addiction, there's something that's a sign of pain. You know, you're trying to treat your pain. There's something traumatic. There's something that needs to be dealt with. And if you can get that out of the way or learn ways to manage painful memories and manage behaviors that you've learned that don't serve you anymore, then if you can get rid of those things, you don't have the need for the addiction as much. And I really I just would love so much for everybody, to be able to have happy, healthy lives and overcome their addiction and discover themselves and discover what they're good at and just, have a good, enjoyable life. Is, everything is nuts right now. You guys have seen the news and you see what's going on online and just the things that are coming up. There's so much craziness going on, and I'm very happy that I have this that I can concentrate on, and I can come and talk to you guys. I don't have to worry about everything else. I don't have to look at it. I'm just concentrating more on me and my life and my goals and and the boat, and I don't know. This is wonderful thing to have to turn to. And you guys are awesome. I love this. It's nice to have be able to put my attention here. Anyway, I've got so much to do today, and I gotta go change my clothes and get my run done before the sun gets up too high. I get too hot too easily, so I gotta go get this done. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. It's good to see everybody. I hope you have a good one. I will talk to you again tomorrow. We'll see ya.